There's nothing quite like the sound of MIXOLYDIAN, and really having it down will give your improvisation a huge boost. So today I'm going to give you 5 exercises to try, plus a few ideas for each one. If you practice these consistently, you'll master this incredible mode in no time. The first thing we're going to do here is set the foundation by doing the scale pattern for MIXOLYDIAN. I'm going to use E as the root note, so we're doing E MIXOLYDIAN, which is really coming from the key of A major, but don't worry about that right now. We'll just focus on the scale pattern. I'm going to play it first and then show you how to practice it. One more thing really quickly and then we'll get started. I recommend doing everything I'm about to present in this entire lesson in 3 different distinct fingerings. I've got a free worksheet. I mapped it all out for you. There's also a free jam track that has like an E mixo kind of vibe to it, so you can put some of this stuff to work improvising right away. So click the link if you want that. Let's get into it. So here's what E MIXOLYDIAN sounds like. The thing that really gives MIXOLYDIAN its distinct sound is it's like a major scale, but it has a flattened 7th. And what I'm going to do is talk you through it, starting with the pinky finger on the note E on the 12th fret of the low E string. I've got the metronome at 60 beats per minute, counting 8th notes. 1, 2, ready, and... Now let's go backwards. Ready, and... Like I said just a little bit ago, this really will give us a strong foundation to work with. Later when we get into chords, everything will make more sense. The other thing here is that having the scale pattern down can be a really effective way to kind of connect other concepts together. Also, you can really get creative with the amount of notes you group together in a scale run, and later I'm going to share one of Jerry's most iconic sounds. Let's get into the second exercise, which is taking this scale pattern and then breaking it into thirds and practicing it like that. So I'm going to play it first and then talk you through it. Like before, I've got the metronome at 60 beats per minute, and here's how you play it. On one hand, part of that exercise is just a memorization thing, just a rote memorization, muscle memory kind of thing where you just want to play that, get the physical, part of it down. But even more important than just the memorization of that is the concept behind it. So always remember, when you do a thing like that, where we just played thirds in MIXOLYDIAN, you're really just playing the diatonic chords in the major key that's coming from, but starting on the 5th chord in the key. So the way you really want to think of it is like this. The diatonic chord order of a major key goes like this. Major, that's the root, minor, minor, major, major, minor, diminished, that's for triads. And so if you think about what the 5th chord is in that series, it would be a major chord. So we went major, minor, minor, major, major. I'm on the 5th one. The thing that can potentially cause confusion here is that we have to keep track of the fact that we're doing the same series of chords, but starting on the 5th one. So now the first one is major, but the second one is actually the 6th chord in the major key, which is minor. The next one is diminished, and I'm talking about triads right now. Later we'll do 7th chords. That means that the next one, the 4th one, is major, and then minor, minor, major. So it's the same series of chords, but starting at a different place. So I'm going to play the thirds again, but this time I'm going to call out the order of the chords I'm doing. Major, minor. This one is minor for now, but it'll be diminished later when we do triads. Major, minor, minor, major, major. One of the main benefits of having thirds down like that in terms of how to use that improvising is it's just a subtle thing, but it creates a little bit of space in your playing rather than a scale sequence that just goes in order. Just the fact that you're skipping over a scale tone, it ends up making the lines that you play sound a little more musical, even a little more melodic. And these are little puzzle pieces that when we go to improvise, we can draw on, and we really need to have them under the finger so we can do it with just an effortless flow. And we don't want to be thinking about it. That's the reason that practicing this stuff is so important, so that when you go to play, you don't have to think about what to use or how to do it. For the third exercise, we're doing triads. So just like with the thirds, they're the same chords we would do from a major key, just starting on the 5th chord. And so that means in this case for E Mixolydian, we're going to start with an E major. Here's how it sounds. I'll just play it first and then talk you through how to practice it. Let's slow it down and put it at 60 beats per minute, and then I'll give you some tips and tricks along the way. 1, 2, ready, and... Now let's go backwards. 2, ready, and... Just like the thirds, we're playing those diatonic chords, but starting on the 5th chord in the key. So that's going to be major, E major, followed by F sharp minor, followed by G sharp diminished, because that's the 7th from the original key, which is the key of A. Then A major is next, B minor, C sharp minor, D major, and then E. And then of course knowing it backwards is just as important. So E again, D, C sharp minor, B minor, A major, G sharp diminished, F sharp minor, and then E. What we get with the triads is a really strong chordal foundation, because the thirds, they're the beginning of chords, but they're not quite a chord yet. We really need those 3 notes, the root, the third, and the 5th to have a full chord. And so the triads give us that. They also give you a really strong frame when you're improvising. You can use them to embellish around or do passing tones up into a note from the chord. It's easier to play to chord changes and target chord tones because you have that form down, and you don't have to think of where the third is. You just have it down under the fingers. That's one of the main benefits of a practice like this. But again, I can't stress it enough. It's the same chords you would be playing if you were playing from the parent major key. Like A major is our parent major key for this E Mixolydian example. It's just like the same chords that are from that key. They're literally the same, but starting on the 5th chord. So that's the only difference. The 4th exercise is going to be playing 7th chord starting on the note E. So the first chord is going to be an E7. Here's what it sounds like, and then I'll talk you through how to practice it. Here it is at 60 beats per minute. 1, 2, ready, and... Now let's go backwards. 1, 2, ready, and... Because we're starting on the 5th, that means that we start with the 7th chord. That's also called a dominant chord, E7. The 6th chord in the key is a minor chord, and that'll be an F sharp minor 7 in this case, because we're coming from the key of A major. The 7th degree is going to be Locrian, and that is a half diminished chord, so G sharp half diminished, which you'll also see called G sharp minor 7 flat 5, but I prefer to call it half diminished. The next one's A major 7, The next chord in this sequence is a minor 7 chord, so we've got a B minor 7. Next up is a C sharp minor 7, followed by a D major 7, and then we're back to E7. One of the other benefits of practicing this way is we start to really get to know different chord shapes for the same kind of thing. So if you do this in different fingerings, like I was describing earlier, you'll have all these different ways to play the same thing, because part of the blessing and the curse of the guitar is we have a lot of different ways we can do the same thing. There are many benefits to having your 7th chords down like this. There's the picking work that goes into it, the dexterity. So like there's technique benefits to learning these, but then also knowing where you're at within a key and knowing where all the other chords are is really huge in terms of being able to flow with your improvisation. I also recommend taking that larger structure of the 7th chord and then seeing if you can identify the triads that exist within that larger structure. So when you play, let's take the first one, for example, in E7. In that 7th chord, we're actually playing 2 triads that are sort of joined at the hip. There's the E major triad, and then a G sharp diminished. One of the benefits of seeing that diminished part of the larger form is that then you can, instead of just thinking of E-centered things, like doing E MIXOLYDIAN, you could do G sharp diminished patterns, and you can create even more tension. And then tie it back to your E7 stuff. So there's a whole world of stuff you can play around with. Really great tension and release stuff. If you guys want me to get more into how to use diminished elements within a dominant chord, just let me know. Comment below and I'll do a lesson on that. That probably deserves its own deep dive. There's one more little tip I wanted to share related to what I just talked about in terms of breaking that larger structure into 2 triads, for example. Not only do we have the arpeggios we can play, with whatever that chord is, but usually we associate a pentatonic scale with that. So in this example, we could do some really creative stuff. That G sharp diminished, you could do a pentatonic scale with that as well. Just think of it like this. The only difference is if you played a G sharp minor pentatonic scale, flatten the 5th, and you get a really awesome pattern. So I just want to share one version of this. There are 5 positions for every pentatonic, so just think of the implications of how much this could boost your creativity. Here's the example I wanted to give. If I go up here, first I'm going to just do a G sharp minor pentatonic so it's a little easier to see in first position. But that won't quite work for us because our G sharp isn't minor, it is a diminished triad. Remember how we did that down here. So all we have to do, it's really simple, do everything the same with your pentatonic run, your minor pentatonic run I should say, but flatten the 5th. So one of the 5ths is going to be right here, and we're going to flatten that down to a D from a D sharp. Here's the other D sharp that we're going to turn into a D, and then you end up with this really cool sounding scale like this. That would be played against an E7. So try to kind of get the sound of that E7 tuned in, and then it's really a cool sound. So like I said, that's just one example of what you could do with this in terms of connecting the chord with the pentatonic that goes with it. Let me know if you want me to dig deeper into that in a separate lesson. All of these little things could probably have their own lessons, and I'm sure they could. So you guys let me know if you want more on that and I'll make it happen. For our 5th and final exercise today to help boost your MIXOLYDIAN playing, I'm going to take one of Jerry Garcia's most iconic sounds, which is when he takes his scales and breaks them into groupings of 4, and we're just going to apply that to MIXOLYDIAN. So first what I'm going to do is descend with it. He really would tend to descend more than ascend. So I'm going to do it in that same kind of order. I'll flip it around. I'm going to descend with the pattern and then ascend, and then I'll show you how to practice it. So here it is. Here's the exercise more slowly at 60 beats per minute. 1, 2, ready, and. way. So think of it like this. You're just going to count in groupings of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. In that case, I'm descending. Then I go one scale tone lower than where I started last time and do another 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Go down another scale tone, count 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you just keep doing that. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. When Jerry would use that, he wouldn't tend to do like 2 octaves all in a row of that same concept, but rather just a little bit of a run using that, connecting it to some other thing like a triad or some of the other concepts we talked about. On one hand, it is important to practice it that way, I think, so you just kind of map the terrain and you know where everything is. But in the long run, you're more likely just going to use a little piece of that. And what it does is it helps us just see one different way we can use our scale more creatively. That's one of many ways. So one other tweak you can make to that is take those 4s and just start on this syncopated rhythm. So instead of starting like on a strong beat, like 1 E and a 2 E and a, start on the E of 1, for example. So instead of going 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a, go 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. And that's a really subtle thing that really can shift things and create a bouncy kind of sound. I've got one more exercise for you to try out. You could apply it to this last concept or really any of the things covered in this video, and that's using bidirectional movement. And so what I mean by that is in this example with the scale runs of 4, you would descend with 4 notes and then ascend with the next 4 notes and then alternate descend with the next 4, ascend with the next 4 after that. So that would sound like this. Or if we started from the bottom of the scale, we could go like this. You could obviously apply that to different parts of the scale. I just started at the top and I started at the bottom. There's a ton you can do with that, but I just wanted to plant the seed of when you take a concept, whether it's thirds, triads, 7th chords, these 4-note groupings, try going up in one direction and then taking the next kind of part of that concept and go the opposite direction. It's just one really simple way you can get even more out of the stuff you're learning just by changing directions. Thank you for spending your time with me. I really appreciate it. And I hope that you got something out of this and it opened some doors and gave you some new stuff to work on. If there's anything you have questions about, just leave them in the comment section below. Don't forget to get the free worksheet. There's a link in the description, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.